Hello and welcome to another update video about Bitcoin. Yeah, I promised you it will be a very interesting weekend, and we are just below the 44.5k level again. So Bitcoin moved up briefly to 45k and then moved down below that resistance level again. The entire crypto market today, yeah, a little bit in the red, I would say. More than not are in the red. As always, there are exceptions which are going up. But with Bitcoin's latest rejection below 44.5k again, I think we see some cryptos in the red. Not a lot, but there have been few retracements. So let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart. Maybe first to zoom out into that triangle here that we still have, where we've got here this ABCDE triangle, where I told you that in that wave to the upside, that could be an E wave, and it did work out so far at least. We moved all the way to the top. We could even push a little bit higher to 45.5, but what you can see is that the price tried to push through that descending trend line of that, of that triangle, and was rejected and moved down even now below that other red line here, which was the 44.5k level where we found resistance before here, for example, and before here. So currently below 44.5k, the price now needs to push again above 44.5k. So what we have on the chart is a little bit like a possible reversal pattern to the downside, just something to be aware of. This is an ascending wedge. It is more often than not indicating that we could be due a move down, possible exhaustion pattern. But this is of course not 100% guaranteed. It is only the likelihood that is higher than not to go down. And there are a few ways to draw it. I mean, can draw it a little bit more like that. I guess that might even be more valid. I prefer usually not to cut through any price action, but if it means that I get more touch points, I sometimes do it. I think this is probably, I guess this would be the most valid one, where you also have a touch point here, close, so yeah, you've got a few touch points, you've got your ascending wedge, and this will be a really interesting day, I believe, because it will determine today where the price is going to head, or tomorrow. That weekend certainly will be interesting. Currently it's looking a little bit like I could call it a little bit of a bullish flag or a bullish pennant that's going on here, but within that bearish pattern, that bearish trend reversal pattern, which is an ascending wedge, which means you're making higher highs, you're also making higher lows, but the higher highs are going up slower than the higher lows, indicating a possible exhaustion. And I mean, on the 4-hour chart, we can already see that we are due a bearish crossover here that could push the price potentially out of that wedge, and that would be rather bearish. The last time we had a bearish crossover work out here, we had a price drop of around, let's just take a look, from roughly here all the way down there, of around 3.5%. Now that is not much, but if we, first of all, let's say we drop from here 3.5%, well, that would take us down again to below 43k. So it would be quite significant. It would still not mean that we're making a significantly lower low, but still it could be the beginning of a downtrend. But of course, everything's here at the moment, let's say in the limbo. We are really waiting here for a signal. We've got this ABCDE on the chart, which just means that we are in a triangle and that we have a possible triangle wave count, which would support, if we now see selling demand come in, strong selling demand, that would support a push out of the triangle to the downside. That would also be my primary scenario still, even though I have to say that, of course, the higher we go, the more unlikely generally it is that we don't break out, okay? So the higher we go, the more likely it is that we actually break to the upside of that triangle. Now that might seem confusing. The thing is, this is an Elliott Wave count. It is one possibility. There are different counts possible. This is one possibility, and it just shows, and so far it's worked out perfectly, because we have currently fulfilled that E wave. Yes, we can move a little bit higher, but this could now support, if the selling demand comes in, if that ascending wedge works out, we could really see the price push down lower. I mean, you often see these triangles in a fourth wave, and this is a fourth wave potentially, yeah. So that means that if that fourth wave is finished and you get pushed down here, that could really start that fifth wave to the downside. That is one possible wave count and scenario, which doesn't mean it has to break to the downside, but it would support, the wave count would support that movement. There is of course also a wave count if we break to the upside of that triangle, yeah. So in that case, that ABCDE would be invalidated. I would say if we break above 46k, then it is much more likely that we get into this green zone here between 55 and 65k. That would be then a wave B. Would be a little bit more of a complex correction, okay, but it is all possible based on the wave counts, and therefore we are really still in this triangle. And I told you before, we don't know what's going to happen until we really break out of this triangle. My primary expectation would still be that we're going to head into this target area down there between 20 and 29k, but of course I don't know. Okay, so what do we have here? We've got the alternative, should we really break to the upside, that would be a classical ABC pattern. So from up there you start in an A wave, we would then have to count that as 5 waves. That's absolutely possible. We would then move up in a wave B and come down in a wave C. Okay, so that means that last leg here would be a 3-wave structure, and that means in here we would also need to reconsider how we label that, and we could label that as a W. So up here where the wave is, that would be a W. Then you would have your wave X down here, and you would have a wave Y up here. So that's a more complex pattern. Yeah, so let me just show you. We would have this as a so-called W. Maybe I'll take the triangle out now, just to show you here. It's a W. That's a so-called X wave. So basically it's a 3-wave correction. Yeah. It is within a wave B, yeah, but a more complex correction, because in here, in that so-called triangle, you've got various overlaps. You've got a bit more of a complex correction going on here. So WXY, which then would also X, yeah, and then we would have to label this here as a, so basically a WXY. It's a 3-wave pattern, in this case within the wave B, and within that last wave here, that Y wave, you can identify again an A, a B, and a C. And that C wave would allow us to calculate where, with the highest likelihood, that C wave would go. And if we label it like that, so that would be a valid count, and that would mean that we would actually land somewhere here in the region between roughly 59 and 65k, yeah, in terms of the highest likelihood. So we can even narrow it down a little bit if we label it that way. But again, we don't really know what's going to happen until we get a breakout of that triangle. So that will be crucial, yeah. Oops, now go back to that chart. So that will be crucial. Do we really break out of that triangle or not? And I think that could decide today, tomorrow. Yeah, it will be very interesting. The thing is, the longer we are up here, the more difficult it will get for the bears, I think, for now. Yeah, because we really need, if we really have an ABCDE pattern and we try to push here and we can't get that sell-off in, that just means the bears are too weak. We need that selling demand now to really push lower here. So interesting. As I said, we already see here on the 4-hour chart that negative momentum starting on the 8-hour chart as well, but it's still very, very early days for that. Yeah, and I think on the daily we probably won't see anything yet. No, the daily is still pushing higher. So we haven't even seen any negative or decreasing momentum on the daily. So yeah, at the moment, it's still looking fairly good for the bulls, but we have that possible reversal pattern. Yeah, just remember that, and it will be very interesting if that is going to play out today. That would be, of course, the primary expectation, because we can only look at this in terms of probabilities, and such a pattern here would more often than not break to the downside. Okay, that's my view here, and that breakout point, by the way, would be around 44k to the downside, and to the upside, of course, around 45k. Alright, so hopefully you liked the update. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe. And if you really like the content, then check out the channel membership. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.